This is Winter's Night, the haunting of the Hawthorne Cemetery. If you guys came in here last night, did anybody get snowed on?
Probably.
Get snowed on, that's cool.
Yeah, there's...
Oh my gosh, it's haunted already.
It's already haunted.
The ghosts are waiting for us.
There is an effect in here that there's supposed to be where you are snowed on as you come in. There's supposed to be just little flecks of like those white bubbles that kind of look like snow. If you've been through the Hogwarts castle next door, that's the kind of snow it is. It kind of just melts away. But it's a very neat effect when you walk in and you see all this white snow to be snowed upon. First of all, I'm going to talk about this. Hi there.
Hey, sorry, I just left something over
No,
there.
that's okay.
Excuse me.
This is the carriage from the movie Van Helsing, if anybody saw that with Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale. This is the actual carriage from the film. We use it a lot in Horror Nights because we do kind of own the prop now. It's kind of lives here. So we use it during Horror Nights because it's nice and big and gothic, and we can just put it in the street or in a house or wherever we want it. So it's a nice, effect. And there is actually, there's lanterns on the outside, but there is also a lantern on the inside, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, so if you guys want to take a picture of that. Okay, so the Hawthorne Cemetery. Jonathan and Elizabeth were very much in love. Jonathan Hawthorne wanted to marry Elizabeth, so he did, and they decided that they were going to build this huge dream home. Well, you need a plot of land to build a dream home on, so a very old spinster with some fading red hair, Lady Luck, offered them 2 plots of land. Unfortunately, the one that Jonathan chose was not the right one. He should have chose the other one. Now, there's no rhyme or reason to why this was not the right plot of land, but it just wasn't. So they got a cottage built before they built their huge mansion dream home, and Elizabeth became ill. Jonathan brought in every traditional doctor he could, and none of them knew why she was ill. So he brought in a non-traditional type doctor, somebody that dealt more with potions and things of that nature. He brought this man in. His last name was Trumbull. He brought him in, and unfortunately Elizabeth still died. Now, when Elizabeth died, this Mr. Trumbull man, this type of doctor, embalmed her with this special type of fluid. When he embalmed her with this fluid, her soul could not rest. It would always be up, couldn't stay down, can't keep a dead horse down, I don't know. Anywho, she would always rise. So, Jonathan decided to make this into a memorial garden. Well, people started dying. When people die, a memorial garden turns into a cemetery. That's just what happens when you got dead bodies. They just can't be laying around. So you have to put them in a cemetery. Well, this is the Hawthorne Cemetery because Jonathan in 1834 shot himself because he couldn't live with Elizabeth's death anymore. So he shot himself, and they're both buried in here. Now, Mr. Trumbull did not know that when he embalmed Elizabeth with this stuff that her body would keep coming back, and or not her body, her spirit. And she is bringing back with her other spirits. So you are entering on the one night a year that the spirits can roam in this cemetery. It's 1899 is the year you're supposed to be entering, and like I said, there should be snow when you walk through the house later. Now, that all being said, Malcolm Trumbull, who was the doctor's son, was kind of an alchemist as well, kind of played with potions a little bit. Well, he is what is keeping all of you safe as you walk through this house. You will notice lanterns. There's some in the tree carriage. Like I said, there's one inside the carriage. Malcolm Trumbull brews this special brew of lantern oil that burns blue. The blue oil keeps all of the spirits inside the cemetery and away from you. So as long as you're near a blue lantern, you're fine. If not, watch out, because they're out to get you. It's a very, very fun house. It's very effects heavy, so there's a lot of effects in every different room that we go through. So I'm going to stop in every room, take as many pictures as you want as we go through. If I'm in your way, just say move, and I'll move, because I don't want to be in your picture. So follow me.
So in other words, if you don't like anybody, keep them away from the blue lanterns.
Right.
Say, okay, go for the red lantern.
What we did instead is we're using like UV light, purple light, and doing UV action.
I know, it's hard to stay out of everybody's pictures.
Yeah.
So, what happened here is
So just want to make sure that everyone else had room to get in.
light from the back of this, so they're standing
Just a quick side note, there are vines here and there are vines in Grown Evil. All of the vines are actually from the old Hard Rock building that was in the back of Universal Studios over near Barney and Kids Zone area. We're actually demolishing that. So when they heard that, Creative went over and found every piece of vine work they could and every dead plant. And now they're in our house, so this is all that remains of the old Hard Rock building are these vines. But they're kind of everywhere, so it was probably pretty neat over there before they demolished it. Okay, do we have any Doctor Who fans here? We have two. Awesome.
I say kind of, sort of, but yeah.
Okay.
The angels thing.
Okay, yes. I myself am not really a Doctor Who fan. However, there is a very good episode of Doctor Who called Blink. In the episode Blink, there are aliens from another world. They come to Earth. When they come to Earth, they take the form of angel-type statues. If you look at them, they have to stay stationary. Once you avert your eyes or look somewhere else, they can move. If they move and they end up touching you, they transport you to a different time period. It's not necessarily like you're dead, you just have to go back to, say, 1873, where there's no cell phones and no laptops and nobody you know or love. So it's not the worst thing ever because you're not dead, but it's not the best thing ever because everything you knew and loved is gone.
Well, it depends. I mean, you could bet on college football then.
What was that?
Then you could bet on college football back then.
Oh, that is true. That is true. You have to take an almanac with you then, just like in Back to the Future. So this room is a little homage to that. In the Blink episode, they are called weeping angels. Ours are called sorrow angels, but they're pretty ugly when you see their faces. You can kind of see hers underneath her gloved hands. She's got really gross teeth and her eyes are pretty angry. Now we do have a character right over here that replicates this one over here. Now the problem is if they look at each other, they're frozen. They're dead forever because if we look at them, they have to freeze, but if they look at each other, they're frozen for life. So that one will always have her eyes covered. This one here, of course, wants to scare all of you. She does have a trigger or a foot pedal that has a sound effect. When she decides to move and she hits her trigger, the sound of stone on stone is supposed to be heard. So it's a really nice effect to hear the stone moving because she's supposed to be a statue. And she is pretty creepy looking. We like our statues. We use statues whenever we can. Last year in the conservatory of Legendary Truth, if you guys went through that house, we had our bronze statues. This year we decided to go back to the cement-looking statues because it's a nice effect. The bronze ones sometimes can become kind of like, you know, carnival looking, like on the side of the street waiting for money. Okay, that's it. I've got it. All right.
Look at old Victorian exit sign. Oh, they're doing a commercial.
Somebody stand here. No. Why does it say exit?
Guys, they're doing a little bit of production in the house, so they told me it'll just be a minute and then we'll get to keep going. So just
Okay.
and then you'll come around this corner and you'll see the effect if you didn't see it last night. The effect that you will be looking at, or those of you in front of me are looking at, is called Something's Crawling. If anybody has seen The Walking Dead show on AMC, there is, you're not filming anymore, are you? Okay, I just want to make sure. If you've seen that show, there is a scene in one of the first episodes where you see something crawling far away. Once the camera gets closer, it's actually a zombie dragging its body because the bottom half is missing. That's what we kind of got inspiration for this scene. When you walk through this scene, there is a dead spirit who is missing the bottom half of his body, and he's actually dragging himself through the graveyard. It's a very effective effect because he does really look like he is dragging himself through the dirt. It's very nice. It's also a good example of distraction. Over here we have a really neat effect that we want you to look at. Right across from it, there is a boo door where a character will drop the door and scare the bejesus out of you from behind. Now, all of our boo doors last year, we went through and made them pneumatic, so they all run on air pressure. The characters actually don't have to raise them themselves. They actually just get to hit a button and it goes back up. There is a sensor on it so that if some drunk person tries to put their hand in there while they're going through, it will stop itself so it doesn't cut off your hand, because we only want fake limbs around here. We don't need real ones. But it is nice for the characters because they work really hard, so it's better for them to just hit a button rather than have to raise a wooden door every 30 seconds. So as you take a look, take all your pictures, and we'll move on to the next room.
Can I also add those spinning tunnels do not help you when you're drunk either? Not that I would actually know that or anything.
And he's right there.
Scary, right?
It's not a character, but it's a really good effect.
Oh.
It's a skeleton.
Yeah, if you guys, once you see it, if you want to walk up just a little bit farther so we can get everybody in. Oh.
Yeah, that does look cool.
They need to clean the mirror.
You talk about it reminded me when there was one year when I was at Six Flags. I actually got to work inside one of the haunted houses,
Oh, really?
and I was in a mausoleum, and it was like the tunnel thing that they had, or the little boats.
Uh-huh.
And what would happen is, it's like across the way there was a picture there.
Oh, okay.
Everybody would come in and they'd be looking at the picture, and I would just jump out and hit this and hit this big wooden block on right
Couldn't see
behind
it.
him.
It's hard to get a picture.
The only people that weren't scared are the ones that would come through 2 or 3 times and be like, "Hey, wait a second, you didn't scare me." It works.
Alright. As you guys are taking your pictures, the effect that I kind of am pointing my flashlight at that most of you saw as you walked by is a very effective effect, but it's an effect where if you blink, you'll kind of miss it. And going through these houses the way most people do because of the nature of our houses, you kind of go through on a conga line, you know? You're like, dun, 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 scare. So you'll kind of blink and miss this, but we've used this effect before. A couple years ago, we had a house called Dead Silence, if anybody remembers that house. It's my favorite house, actually, but there was an effect where you were walking on a catwalk, and it looked like Mary Shaw, who was the protagonist of that movie, is coming at you. But it also looks like you're on a catwalk, like 80 feet in the air. We used a very large mirror, and Mary Shaw was actually hung from the ceiling, but the mirror was down here. So it looked like you were like 100 feet in the air. It was really a really good effect. The problem with this effect, and as you can see, this one here is very small, if the mirror breaks, the effect is shattered, quite literally. And the Dead Silence house, the mirror did become broken throughout the run. So we had to replace a very, very large mirror rather quickly, which is not the easiest task. So that's probably why we've scaled down the effect. It's still very powerful, you just might miss it if you're going through and you don't know that it's there. When I was talking about distraction earlier, this particular scene is another good form of distraction. Where I am, back in this alcove, if I keep moving back, there is a trigger over here because there's a character. Now, most of the time, triggers are sounds, because sound scares you. If something jumps out at you, and there's a loud noise, it scares you that much more. Well, this time, it's not a sound, it's actually an effect. When you guys walk by over here, and the guys of you that are over here, there's a large wooden coffin right here with chains on it. When they hit this trigger, that coffin starts jumping, and the chains start hitting it. So you're thinking that this character is actually in that coffin. They're not, they're over here, so they want you to look over there so that they can get you from this way. It's true. Also, as you walk through, this year there's not as many coffins as there have been in past years, but any coffin, and I'm talking about like a coffin like this little white one over here, not the wooden old-timey ones, but any coffin that we have here is actually used already. We bought it used. Basically, once you die, if you decide you want to be cremated, but you want to have a viewing, you are put in a coffin for your viewing. You can't just put a body out on a slab. You've got to put them in a coffin. So you put them in the coffin for their viewing, but then their body's cremated. That coffin has been used. It can no longer be used. You can't put another dead body in it. You can't just keep recycling the coffin. That coffin is done. So we buy them and put them in our haunted houses. So if you touch a coffin, a dead body has actually been inside of it.
We hope you, and I hope they're still dead. Of course, that would be good. That would be good for a horror movie. Where do you get these coffins at?
Your body's just like getting used to it. So, we are about to enter Malcolm Trumbull's shack, the gravedigger shack. It was actually Elizabeth and Jonathan's cottage before they both died. So a little thing right over here is supposed to be their cottage. But one thing you just walked by is actually this vine-covered thing. If anybody came through Psychoscarapy last year, we had a scene where there were hands attached to bars, and then there were real hands and there were fake hands. The bars are actually behind the ivy, so we're reusing that prop right there. We like to reuse props whenever we can, especially if we're storing them. We're storing them for a reason, so they can be reused. Behind both of these ivy-covered areas is some technology that we used last year for the first time. If you ever, I think your shirt, does your shirt glow in the dark?
Yeah.
If you ever had a shirt that glows in the dark, when you have it, you have to put it in the light, you know, to make it glow. Well, last year in Legendary Truth, we had masks like that. They had to be set in bright lights during the break. Our characters get 45 minutes on, 45 minutes off. So the 45 minutes off, all their masks had to be put under very high intensity bright lights so that they would glow through the house. Now the characters back here aren't actually wearing masks like that, but we have integrated some of that type of technology into their hats and their gloves, so it looks like spirits are coming after you and they're glowing as they come through those bars. So. I'm just so I don't have to yell over you guys like you guys are deaf by the end of the tour, and these people back here are like, what did she say?
This is a quaint little house.
Yeah, it's very small, very quaint. Yeah. Okay. This is the only room in the house where you will see a living body. Everybody else is a spirit, but Malcolm Trumbull does make his appearance right here, which I assume is hopefully another room in his house. It looks like the closet to me, but if spirits were coming out from their graves, I think I'd be hiding in the closet too, and that might just be me. But if you look behind you, actually, I don't want to shine this in anybody's eyes, but back here are the lanterns. He makes that blue oil, so he has to fill the lanterns with them, and as you can see, there's a whole shelf of nothing but lanterns, and there's lanterns here. The effect in this room is actually based on UV light and UV paint. We have used UV paint, and on the walls there are paintings of what looks like spirits that are wailing. Their mouths are very open. They look like they're crying in pain. It's really just their face. And then this lantern right here has the UV light in it, and it spins. So it's not like you always see that spirit. As that light spins and hits the UV reactive paint, it makes the spirits appear. So I'd be hiding in my closet too. I'm pretty sure about it. But it's a really great effect. But my favorite effect in the whole house is actually in the next corridor. All of you probably won't fit. So Sean, if you can't hear me, please let me know, okay? Okay.
the diorama.
Okay. Sean, can you hear me? Okay. This room is called the Faraway Cemetery. That's because we are trying to make it look like there is a cemetery that goes on and on and on. This is a technique called forced perspective. It's used a lot in filmmaking. The tombstones closer to you are bigger. As you get farther away, they become smaller. During the day with the work lights on, it's not so apparent, but at night it is a very good effect, and it does look like it goes on for quite a while. But of course, we wouldn't have little boo holes so you can see the faraway cemetery without characters to pop up and scare you while you're looking at them. But if you look at that carriage, you'll see like 2 or 3 little cloaked people back there. That's also a technique that's used in filmmaking called foreshadowing. Just remember that, because you might see that later in the house.
Hint, 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 hint. Oh yeah.
But we've only had 8 nights to run, so.
You got yelled at.
No, I really like the event. I do hate my voice when I'm I'm like, I sound like Kermit the Frog. Oh God.
Did you get it over? I don't want to get in the way. Get out the way.
You should blade it to the T then. What? Hair. Man, it's a good thing I put in a high memory stick in my flash camera.
Oh, why? Are you running out of room already?
Well, I mean, I went to Animal Kingdom yesterday. Went on a safari about 2 or 3 times, so I got about 100 pictures of animals too.
Well, that's gonna be nice. You're like, oh, cheetah, bones.
A cemetery?
Just a flashlight.
What's wrong with her?
All right. You are currently standing in an ossuary. An ossuary is a place where they store bones. It's different from a catacomb. A catacomb is subterranean, and it's usually a little more decorative. Here, what they do is if you don't have enough money to pay for your gravesite, they bury your body, wait for it to decompose, then they dig it up and throw the bones here in the ossuary. So that's why bones are kind of littered everywhere. There are a couple of props in here that you might recognize if you've been to the event a while. Yes, the chandelier, the bone chandelier is one of them. Last year it was in the body collector's room of the hallowed past, and it's made its appearance many times. And then this very large prop, the sarcophagus, has actually been in every mummy house we've ever done here at Halloween Horror Nights. It's pretty large, pretty heavy, so we like to store it because it can come in handy. Another large prop this year that's not in this house, but a lot of people like to know where they are. During Scary Tales, we had a Hansel and Gretel stove. They're very large brown stoves. Those are fittingly in Saws and Steam this year in the very last scene, so you have to look for them. But one of the effects that we found a couple of years ago works really well. How many people went through the Chucky house? Okay, how many people remember the very large stuffed animals character? There was a pile of stuffed animals, and on top of it looked like more stuffed animals. Well, that was actually a person in a ghillie suit. A ghillie suit is if you've ever been hunting or camping and you want to look like a bush. That's what you wear. You wear a ghillie suit. It's camouflage. But it can be whatever you want. Well, we made ours a pile of bones. So right here sits a man in a ghillie suit covered in bones. He stands up, hits his trigger, there's a loud noise, and there you get scared. My favorite ghillie suit, actually, we're using 2 this year. There's this one, but there's also one in HR Blood and Guts. If you go through the feaster room, there is, you know that green Easter grass that gets everywhere? That's a ghillie suit this year, which I think is awesome.
Oh no, the grass is attacking me.
We're gonna move on. Well, that stuff doesn't pop. I'm gonna get it. It won't go.
Did you get a picture of that, man?
You know what the street value now would be? stay in the picture. It looks kind of cool.
Bones everywhere, huh?
It's the Hughes family.
The Hughes family.
Okay. Some of you may already know, but does anybody have a guess as to what these plaques represent? Well, that's a really good guess. The Brady Bunch, very good. Of course, we did not spell Brady B-R-A-D-Y, just in case anybody caught wind of this and thought it would be fun to sue us, because we don't like that. But it's actually the first name of the actor, whoever played the character of the Brady Bunch. And in the middle, we have the maid, because of course she was not technically part of the Brady Bunch, so she has a different last name. As for the birth date, it is actually the actor's birth date 100 years before. So Mrs. Brady is February 14th, 1834, so she was born in 1934. As to the death date, all of them are the day the last show aired. So when the Brady Bunch technically died to television history. That's the Brady Bunch. Is there a character in here already? No. As you walk through this area, take as many pictures as you want. These are the mausoleums. Now, the mausoleums, of course, in a cemetery are a lot of money, and they're usually for the prestigious. Well, the people that make this event, our creative team, are prestigious because they make this event fantastic. So, of course, they get the mausoleums in commemorative of their death, I guess. I don't know. We have the Hughes family, the Braillard family, Aiello, if you guys know who Mike Aiello is, he's a very big name and creative. So they all have mausoleums. They've also, some of them have added pictures, flowers. Some of them have rocks. It's a Jewish tradition to bring a rock to a gravestone. It's supposed to be the smoothest rock you can find from your travels. So if you go to like New Orleans, if you find a very smooth rock and take it back to a Jewish gravestone, you leave it on the top, just to say you were with us in New Orleans in spirit, even though you weren't really with us. So, but walk through here and take your pictures, and we'll.
I'll tell you the most bizarre reference to the Brady Bunch ever was that 70s show.
I don't think I saw that episode.
The actors that played Greg and Peter, they showed up in one of the episodes of that 70s show, and they played a gay couple.
Awesome.
At the end of it, one of them made the comment, it's not like we're on TV and can play brothers or anything like that.
Ooh.
Well, if you know the character Red Foreman, I mean, you can pretty much figure out how that episode went.
Alright, if anybody wants a picture, go ahead and then move on into that scene and I'll tell you more about that.
Mary Shaw.
Mary Shaw.
I just saw that movie a couple days ago.
I saw it like 2 nights ago. I
Right?
love it. It's
Yeah.
so good.
I wasn't really a big fan of that because I thought it was kind of weird.
Well, it's the same director that did Insidious.
Yeah.
And Insidious scared the crap out of me.
Oh yeah, I liked Insidious. That was
Some
awesome.
pics.
Even though you can kind of see what was going to come up at
Okay. Now that I can see everybody, as you walk by, you might notice Mary Shaw's gravestone. Like I said, Dead Silence was a house we had here a couple years ago, and fans really liked that house. So our creative team likes to put like little Easter eggs or little hidden things in the house. The only problem with that is, do you guys remember what year I told you guys we're supposed to be walking through this house? 1899. Mary Shaw did
Good
not
call.
die until 1941. It's an anachronism, which means it's out of place for the time frame it should be in. But that's just like a little Easter egg for all the hardcore fans.
Cough, the Dirty Dancing cough.
Yeah. And this scene should look familiar. Does this look familiar from the little forced perspective model of the cemetery?
I don't know.
We've got the carriage,
Yeah,
we've got the
in the
3
background.
cloaked people, foreshadowing. There are 2 characters in this room. You can see one with their cloak down and one with the cloak up, and all the masks are blue. Now originally the effect in here was supposed to be all the masks have pneumatics running to them, or air pressure, and a light. So when the character hit their effect, that air pressure pressure was supposed to blow the cloak up, so you would actually see their mask. The problem is there's not enough air pressure, and if we added more, it is a safety concern for this character. So it doesn't actually blow the cloth up. So if you walk through at night, their cloths will either be up or down. There's no in between. Last time I went through, they were up, and I think they look better up because then you get to see that cool mask. We've used this old-timey carriage before a couple of times. If anybody wants one, you can go to www.buggy.com and have an old-timey carriage made for you. It'll run you about 12 to 13 grand, but you know, that's pocket change if you've got a haunted house. So, does anybody have any questions about this house in particular before we move on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why is it wet down by the walls?
Why is it wet down there? That's a very good question. There is a fog machine under there that leaks.
Okay, at least it's
Yeah.
justified. I was
Yeah.
So
scared
safety
of
is your
something.
number one concern here.
Yeah, safety is the well. There's
Okay.
no people should be going back there. This character stays right here. So as long as they're not there, it's fine.
I see water and wires and I'm concerned, so.
I'm not concerned if the people running the safety part of the house aren't concerned.
Do we see a potential final destination moment?
Oh, I hope not. I hope not. All right, we ready to go? Yes.
Well, that movie's a joke anyway, so.
Oh, Final Destination. Well, all of them were.